Today we shall rank all 3 types of general traits in HoI4. Number 1 are the Earnable Traits. These can be gained by using your generals in certain conditions, and there is no limit to how many of those you can get. However, each of these traits makes the acquiring of other traits slower. Number B are the Assignable Traits. Of those you can only assign up to 5 at max, 1 if you promote your general to a field marshal, and 1 for each 2 levels that they have. And finally we have the Personality Traits. These you cannot influence in any way whatsoever. They are assigned randomly when recruiting generals, or given to generals at the start of the game, or via events like when Stalin turns generals into chaos. Because of that, we have to weigh them all a little bit differently, but F tier, as always, is just a detriment. I'd rather have no trait than have this one. C tier, I'm not gonna complain about it, but I'm also not hooting for it. B tier, all traits that are good, but a little bit more situational. A tier, of course, should be used in most cases, with S tier being, honestly, like every single general should have these. There's not really any reason why a general shouldn't have these, if you can afford it. Because of this, personality traits are technically the most important ones, since you cannot get these. If your general is not politically connected, then he will always lose out on the bonuses of That was a bad example. And of course, the assignable ones are also very important because you can only assign 5 of them. We're gonna start off with the Earnable Traits, and because none of these traits are negative, there's not really any trait I would put below C tier here. Now, keep in mind, every trait that you get will make other more useful traits harder to get. So any trait that is in C tier, I would probably avoid, or at least attempt to avoid to get. At the end of the day, these are still useful, but you know, like, I'd rather have infantry leader than commando. There we go. Let's just start off with commando as the first C tier. It does give us 25% non-combat out of supply penalties, which is a lot, but it is kind of hard to get because, you know, either very hot or very cold. Plus, you're not going to paradrop that much. Now, naval penalties, okay, you're going to have them from time to time, depending on the country that you play as, but it is a hard trait to get, and out of these that you unlock, the only useful one, in my opinion, is Camo Expert. Similarly, Trickster, it does give you 25% recon, but it is recon. Desert Fox suffers from one problem, which is that if you look at the map, there are areas with deserts in North Africa and around Kazakhstan and I guess Turkey, which are not really fronts that you will fight in. I guess one thing, like if you get the Africa Corps, that's good. You can send Rommel over here to fight in the deserts, but outside of the North African theater, you're not really gonna use... Like, if you're over here already, either as the Soviets you've already lost, or you've already won. Sure, it's still a lot pushing from here, but you know, like, getting Desert Fox just for the Urals region isn't gonna do anything. One upside of Desert Fox is it does unlock you adaptable, but there are other terrain traits that I would rather get. Our final C tier is Invader. Commando does at least unlock Camo Expert, so let's put it on high C tier. Invader doesn't really provide you any valuable traits. You do get invasion prep time. Does depend on how it's gonna change in No Compromise, but right now you can also just make like 5 different naval invasions and then the penalty doesn't really apply to you, the preparation time. Similarly, the naval invasion speed, sure, it's useful to retain org and to not get intercepted, but it's not really great. Keeping with the theme of terrain traits, Jungle Rat and Swamp Fox. These suffer from the same problem, that you don't really have that many jungles. Brazil and I guess around the Congo, Côte d'Ivoire, but like, how often have you fought in these terrains? With the Amazon shore, like, that's why I put it on B tier. This is why Jungle Rat is on a B tier, because I have fought many a time through the Amazon, and every little bit that makes this less painful is already an S tier in my opinion. Swamp Fox has a bit of a problem where there's not really that many marsh provinces. Like, we can see some around Belarus here, and then a couple of ports like Dithmarschen, a couple around Italy and Florida are marsh provinces. They are more common, but still, for naval invasions into Germany and Italy, are gonna use them. Around Barbarossa a little bit. It is the quintessential situationally good B tier. Since we are already speaking for Barbarossa, Winter Specialist, and I guess we're gonna speak about Barbarossa a lot. Yeah, you get 50% less winter attrition, that's cool. It's not really flashy, but it's nice to have. And then we come to Skilled Staffer, which is one of the weirder traits to evaluate because it doesn't really do anything on its own. And it is very good if you have no generals or very few generals because of low war support and low command power, or if you have very good generals and you want to put more troops on these generals, then skill stuff is really good. But outside of that, generally doesn't do anything. We're gonna get to some of the more interesting traits. Number one is, of course, the engineer. Trust me, I am an engineer. I mean, you just get more attack on forts and rivers. That's really good. And then, of course, you can also spec into Fortress Buster, which is very good, or Scavenger, which you can use for certain playstyles. Rivers are everywhere. You can check the map. Rivers are everywhere. Around the entire world, you will always find rivers, and they are hard to push into. Engineer makes this a little bit less hard. Plus, you get more attack on forts. And I guess you can also unlock the Entrenchment Specialist. Sure. We're gonna put two other terrain traits here, which is Hill Fighter and Urban Assault Specialist. Same reason, like all of these terrain traits are good. While there are many hills, Hill Fighter isn't gonna suddenly catapult you anywhere. Like, it's just gonna make you more efficient about pushing into hills. So it's just good. And then, Organizer, my Organizer. While Organizer on its own only gives you planning speed, which is it does unlock Logistics Wizard. Need I say more? Like, I could actually put Organizer on S tier just because it unlocks Logi Wizard. That's just because it's so good. We're gonna start off the leader traits with the worst one, which is Cavalry Leader, simply for the fact that it only buffs very specific divisions, which is Cavalry, which is bad, or Motorized, which is expensive en masse, compared to Infantry Leader, which is just, you know, you will always have infantry, and Panzer Leader will just make your punchy divisions stronger, plus you get more attack pips, whereas Cav Leader just gives you better motorized and, you know, also access to Combined Arms Expert and Cav Expert if you want it. I guess we already have to create a new tier, which is the SS tier, or the Scharf S tier, as it's known in Germany. While Infantry Leader and Panzer Leader are great, they're not on the same level as some of the other S tier traits that we're gonna see. Like, these are really good, and I would like to see Infantry Leader on most of my generals, whereas I would like to see Panzer Leader on pretty much all of my generals. You get more attack pips on level up, which is really good. And with Infantry Leader, one thing that you have to keep in mind, defense also means breakthrough. So this does give you 13% defense, but also 13% infantry breakthrough. This trait makes a lot of strategies viable, because breakthrough and soft attack is something that infantry is bad at, but if you have more breakthrough, then you will also inversely get more chances to attack, and it also grants infantry expert and ambusher, so it's just a very good trait. And with Panzer Leader, you know, you usually don't use that many tanks. Sure, you have one general with a tank, and, you know, in late game, you can also invest into multiple tank generals. It does give you more attack pips. The only downside is you don't have that many tanks that can benefit from Panzer Leader. I guess I forgot about Ranger. Like, same deal with as Hill Fighter and Urban Assault Specialist. There are a lot of forests all around the world. And our first Scharf S is the Mountaineer, just because mountains are a pain to push into, and this will make pushing in mountains easier, and it also unlocks Adaptable and, like, even Merlin likes Mountaineers, as you can see. Once we get into the assignable traits, there are actually a couple of traits that can get into F tier, which is more interesting. Number one is Fast Planner. On its own, not that bad, you know, you get 25% more planning speed, but it does lock you out of the far superior max planning. Maybe there's a strategy that uses this that I'm not aware of, but between having fast planning and more planning, which means more attack, more breakthrough, I'd rather have more planning. And same deal with Cav Expert. Cavalry sadly isn't great in vanilla HoI4, so this does lock you out of the far superior Panzer Expert and Combat Arms Expert. Combined Arms Expert? Combined Arms Expert. First C tier, Skirmisher. Gives you probing attack. Woo! Then we have Charismatic, which I genuinely don't care about. It doesn't upset me, but it is also not particularly useful in my opinion. Speaking of other traits that I could not care less about, Amphibious and Paratroopers. The supply craze can be incredibly strong and stupid, but in 95% of my games, I just don't care. I'd rather have a stronger Marine General than give him this trait. For example, by picking Naval Liaison. Sorry, I also don't really care about shore bombardment bonus. This one, I don't really want to put into C tier, but compared to the other traits, it's really not that great. Like, Scavenger can be fun, and I do like picking it on certain generals and for certain strategies. Gunman also, I put it as C tier, but I guess it should be B tier because it's situationally useful. It's useful for minors, and then especially if you only give it to one general. You know what? We're gonna make a new tier. This is my tier list. Congratulations, Scavenger. Improvisation expert. It's neat, you can build bridges, and you're faster. You could also be stronger with other traits though. With Guerrilla Fighter, I do have to admit, I am not that versed in gorillas, because in most games, you either have no time to entrench or enough time to entrench. So it's not something that I pick in 90% of games. It is just something that in certain games can be very strong. Maybe, I don't know. I just pick it in like very desperate games. If I'm just going for an infantry spam and my generals have enough traits anyway, so might as well pick up Guerrilla Fighter because others I know I won't get. Speaking about B traits, Expert Delegator is the prime example of a B tier trait. In most games, it's not gonna be something that you really need to pick because keep in mind, picking this trait means you're locked out of potentially 4 other traits, and let's be honest, most generals get to level 6 or 7 in long games, so you only have 3 other traits, out of which one should be leap. Oh god, I'm spoiling it. One of them should be... That is to say, usually you won't have the additional slot for Expert Delegator. It can still be a very useful trait if you, again, don't have that many generals, or you have a very good Field Marshal. Then Expert Delegator can be really good, which is weird because you make your Field Marshal weaker to make your generals stronger, and honestly, on a conceptual level, I really like that. Because you're trading off certain stats. If we're going by that, honestly, Expert Delegator is a sharp S. But we're just going to go for a normal ranking where it is sometimes useful. Aggressive Assaulter. I have picked this trait far too many times out of habit, but it is just the worst Unyielding Defender. Usually, you don't get the chance to pick either of the, or to pick both of them. It can happen on certain generals and with certain events that you get a general that has both Inflexible and Brilliant Strategist. And in these cases, you should pick Unyielding Defender. Aggressive Assaulter does give you Breakthrough, whereas Unyielding Defender gives you Defense. And again, Defense is Breakthrough and Defense. Aggressive Assaulter gives you an increased chance to execute Assault and Shock tactics, which are pretty bad. So you dilute your tactics pool by getting more Breakthrough, which like 10% Breakthrough is really good. You could make the argument that you should put Aggressive Assaulter into F tier because it dilutes your tactics pool and it locks you out of Unyielding Defender. But because in normal HoI4, you don't get Unyielding Defender and Aggressive Assaulter, or the chance to pick both of them, we're just gonna put it into B tier. Camo Expert is my next contender for B tier. No, I'm not gonna make a tier for that one. I'm not, no. We're not starting this, It is a B tier, it is a B tier. The upside of Camo Expert is that if you are running a no air build, which you know, we might have to ask why you're doing this. But if you're running a no-air build because you don't have the industry or you can't be asked, it is very, very strong. But outside of that, why are you picking this? This is a very weird trait that can go between Sharp S and F tier depending on the build that you're going for. So we're just gonna put it into B tier in the middle, and I'm gonna upset both blocks of people. Winter Expert. I could lie to you and say something about this trait, that it is really useful and you should pick it in every game, but the reality is I have never picked this. On paper it sounds goodish. 40% more cold acclimatization gain factor, but I've never bothered with it. Upside, of course, is that you lose the winter penalties quicker and also gradually while your units are weathering. To me, at least, it didn't seem all that worth it to get so far, especially lately where we've just been getting more and more of this modifier. You already have a decent amount, so do you really need more? Who knows? I don't know. Again, I don't find this trait doesn't exist. Honestly, somebody edited the wiki 2 days ago. I've never seen this man in my life. Unyielding Defender, honestly, just a better version of Aggressive Assaulter for all the reasons that I gave earlier. Organization first, 2% more reinforced rate is really good, but honestly, nowadays I feel like you can get that reinforced rate from eating a burrito. It is good in the early game and then falls off in the late game. But I mean, reinforced rate is always good. It's just, you know, nowadays we just have so much reinforced rate. Panzer Expert as well as Combined Arms Expert. Both are really good. Combined Arms Expert is slightly better because once again, they give you more defense, which means more breakthrough. But your ratio of motorized is higher in your tank divisions. So you will benefit more from Combined Arms Expert than from Panzer Expert. And you also unlock the Combined Arms Specialist. Since we're already speaking about these, I might as well go on to Infantry Expert and Ambusher. Both really good traits. Infantry Expert will always be good on most of your generals since you already run a lot of infantry. The downside is that infantry doesn't really have a lot of soft attack. So you're not really modifying a lot here. But of course, you know, attack is useful for defending because the more you attack, the sooner the enemy will have to give up with their offense. So it is really good. Ambusher, on the other hand, gives you 5 more entrenchment, which, you know, depending on the country you're playing as, with Germany's Deutsches Heer and like the entrenchment thing here, static warfare and such, you can get even more entrenchment out of this 5 entrenchment. Because of that, I would put Infantry Expert above Ambusher, just because Infantry Expert is always useful, but Ambusher is only really useful if you're defending, and like Infantry Expert is also useful while defending, but again, it is a very marginal bonus that you get with Infantry Expert. Fortress Buster, while it only applies to forts, it is really funny that with Fortress Buster, you can have more attack than if the enemy didn't have forts, and that is just hilarious. Thorough Planner. This is something that I wasn't sure if I wanted it on A or S tier. Max Planning is something that I would always like to have more of. Onto S tier it goes. The only downside is it only gives you offensive bonuses, so while you're defending, it's gonna be completely useless. You're potentially running low on traits already. This trait is a bit weird because I would still like to get Panzer Expert over Thorough Planner, but Thorough Planner is generally more useful. Oh, well, I guess Combined Arms. You know what I mean. So it does depend on which traits you have unlocked and which traits you can still unlock. And then Defensive Doctrine. The downside of this one is that you lock yourself out of Offensive Doctrine and relegate your general to be a defense, or I guess your Field Marshal, to be a defensive Field Marshal, which isn't that bad. Like for port guards, it's really good. And if you are really in need, you can also spec into it. It's just, you know, you are gonna lose out on Offensive Doctrine. And there we go. Offensive Doctrine. This thing goes on 90, actually. You know, like the Sharp S tier is for traits that I would like to have on every single general, period. And Offensive Doctrine is really good, but there are 5% of cases where I wouldn't want Offensive Doctrine on my generals, which is where Defensive Doctrine comes in. So we're gonna put it on S tier. But still, you get more attack and you get less orc loss on moving, so it's just good. And what a surprise! We still have 2 left over. Logistics Wizard. Yes, sometimes supply consumption is useless. This trait is so strong that I've given it out of habit to generals because it is so strong. It doesn't do anything on generals, but it is such a strong trait that why not just put it on generals, even if it doesn't do anything for them. It's just good. And adaptable, man. Like, I don't even need to say anything. If I could marry Adaptable, I would. Adaptable would be allowed to peg me, put me in a cage, and force me to eat dog food in this order. And I would still love Adaptable. Maybe more if I'm being honest. And with this, we come to the final frontier. Personality traits. This is already an exception. Cowed by Stalin, genuinely just the worst trait in this entire game. 2 attack and 2 defense that you lose out on. If you get cowed by Stalin with a good general, you are in this weird spot where you either use this general in a very nerfed version because you know that the traits that you have and the grinding that you have done before is very useful, or you just ignore this general, throw him in the trash and forget he ever existed, because honestly, both are valid. Promoted away from power, not as bad as being turned into a cow by Stalin, but is still really bad. You lose planning, logistics, and 4% more attrition and supply factor. Politically connected is a trait where you lose XP, but you get a higher chance of getting planning and logistics. It's not that bad, but not getting attack and defense is bad, plus you get less XP gain. And career officer is just politically connected light. You don't have experience gain loss, but you still have the same planning and logistics, which I guess depending on the game that you're going for, you can put it higher, but you know, you still lose out on attack. Same deal with militia officer. If it didn't give defense and planning, it would be a C tier, because like honestly, these might as well not exist. assist. And the same thing applies to Askari officer. It also gives you desert defense and cavalry stats. I mean, I guess it does give you infantry defense. Sure. Congratulations. Low C tier. And then we have the substance expert, and this thing honestly is just F tier because drugs are bad. And yeah, the inspirational bagpiper. For as funny as Mad Jack is, 65% more chance to get wounded is a lot for 10% division HP and 10% division XP gain. And the political traits we're gonna put in C tier because while they can be bad, most of the time they're just useful to let you know which generals you should train and keep. They don't really do anything apart from informing you, so I guess, you know, you can put it up here. The old guard is almost a B tier. There we go. Sure, join scavenger. You do lose out on XP gain, but you get more entrenchment, so it should only be used if you really need to defend, for example, port garrisons. It is integral, like Poland, early game, or your game doesn't run for that long, because the longer you use that guy, the less XP you get. Guess I have to put this into C tier, because it doesn't exist. Cautious and reckless, both can be kinda useful. Between cautious and reckless, honestly, it depends on which day you ask me. Sometimes I would prefer cautious, sometimes I would prefer reckless. Reckless means your general will have more chances to get wounded, so you lose half of your general. But it does give you more attack pips, less defense pips, and more planning pips. Whereas cautious gives you more defense and logistics pips. If you want to grind your general, cautious is really good. In general, honestly, they're fine-ish traits. I wouldn't be mad if I were to put these in B tier, but these have more downsides than the other B tiers that we're gonna see, so we're gonna put it into C tier. War hero and media personality are also really good traits because reassignment duration shouldn't really be a factor in 99% of your games, but you get more attack and planning for level ups. So off to B tier you two go, my friends. War hero is slightly better. And the irregulars officer is just an upgraded version of those because you get non-combat auto supply penalties, stuff that nobody cares about, and attack and planning. And then we also have brave, less division orc loss when below 25%. It's fine, and a defense pip for free, like nothing to get upset about. Like, it's just good. This next one is gonna be a bit of a doozy. Infantry officer, cav officer, armor officer, and of course the engineer officer. They all allow you to unlock your capstone traits quicker, so you will get infantry leader, engineer, cav leader, and panzer leader quicker, which will allow you to get combined arms expert, scavenger, and so on much quicker. So really good traits, and with these we also get into the nitty-gritty where infantry officer allows you to unlock your infantry traits quicker. You get defense and planning. Cav officer allows you to unlock the combined arms expert if you care about it, but you get attack and logistics, so this one is always useful. Armor officer gives you attack and planning. Engineer officer gives you attack and planning, so these three are always useful, even if you don't want your specific upgrades. And infantry leader is just useful because it is infantry leader. And then, oh, my favorite one, harsh leader. You just get more attack pips for free. You do lose out on division recovery, but honestly, you get one attack for free and you get attack and logistics just for a measly 10% division recovery rate. This thing, almost one of the best leader traits to have. One thing that is rivaling this is Hero of Ethiopia, 10% more orc and 5% more infantry defense. If my generals had that, I wouldn't complain. I wouldn't mind having more orc and defense, me personally. Although I already have a lot of orc. You can see that by how often I upload to this channel. Exiled leader is weird because it is insane. 10% exile divisions attack, 5% own exile divisions attack, defense and more defense. It is a very good trait. The only downside is you lose out on it after the war and it only applies to exile divisions. If it didn't apply to exile divisions, what the fuck would they have been cooking with this one? Like, this is insane. I don't use this that often because I do like to grind my generals myself, but if you're only in it for World War II, like, just use it. Determined just gives you one more attack and planning. There's not much more to say there. Off to S tier you go, my little friend. Bearer of artillery isn't that great because artillery isn't that great, but Wojciech gets it, and because of that, honestly, it's just an S tier because of Wojciech. Veteran Jäger. Oh. more attack pips, more logistics pips. You get to adaptable quicker. You get all of your terrain traits quicker. You get equipment capture ratio on top of that. Like, come on. Like, if you have a general with this available, he's a field marshal now. He's the leader of your country now. Then we have the two final ones. The brilliant strategist and, of course, the inflexible strategist. Two sides of the same coin. Honestly, just same deal for both. More attack and more planning is good. More defense and logistics is good. You do get skill factor for an inflexible strategist here, which I don't like that much, but you do get access to unyielding defender. Because brilliant strategist gives you more attack, I would personally put it above inflexible, but both are just really good and I'd be fine with, like, they are on the same level, honestly. And that is it. So I think I cooked here. What do you think? Should I burn in hell for what I have created here? Probably. But if you enjoyed my bad opinions, why don't you watch this video where I ranked every HoI4 DLC in a tier list?